Hello, can you hear me? Good evening, everyone. I hope you're good tonight. Please say hello if you're tuned in and listening in the comments. Got a new setup, so I am going to be mixing a track down live. And yeah, I'm here to ask any questions you might want to ask. So yeah, please say hello in the comments. Right, so what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to mix down an old track of mine actually, and I listened to it the other day, and I made it on the SP1200, which is the old drum machine sampler that I had, a lot of it, and a bit of the piano. So it wasn't the most hi-fi, but it was just making a track out of the box mostly. So I'm going to release some vinyl on my label Bohemian Disco coming up very soon. So I thought I'd re-look at everything, and this was the first track I was going to look at. And I just thought, might as well just pull the stems in, because I did this in Bitwig originally, and then just try and mix it down and think about how I'm gonna do it. So let's have a listen to it. I'll probably flip between the original master and my mix, because this is just a stem, so it might not sound the same. But let's have a listen to it. Okay, so sorry about that. So if somebody sends me a stem master or a mix, what I do is I get the kick separate, the bass separate. I put all the mid drums like the claps, the snares, the congas, and everything else into one group. Get all the high drums into another group, like hi-hat shakers, tambourines, all that kind of stuff. And then I have all the effects in one group, which is all your risers, snare builds, effects, just, you know what I mean. And then generally what I'll do is, because most of the problem with mixes come from the kick, the bass, the clap, being the center of it, and the music, and then a lot of the mess or the mud comes from the music and all the different parts. Too much reverb, too much delay. So when I'm doing a mix, I ask them to split the music group up into separate. So there's only 6 in this track, but just gives me more ability to control the center field, the stereo field, depth of field, and everything else. And that's, you know, besides the kick and the bass, that's generally where a lot of the problems are when it comes to mud and people unable to get the track sounding really quite loud and really good. So this is an old track that I did. Like I said, I did it in analog. The piano was from an M1 plugin, but we recorded it after and all went through the analog chain. So it wasn't like meant to be a super hi-fi mix. But I listened to the mix and I went back to it, and it didn't sound great, but it was all analog, so it sounded all right. So what I did was, it sounded a bit strange going into mono. So if you listen here, so when you monoed the track and you listen to it, you could hear like the piano's disappearing. And that was the first thing I thought when I listened to the stems. And because this is going to vinyl, this is like 6 minutes 40, but I'm probably going to have one side as big lead vocal track, so Barbara Tucker, so that'll probably be 45 RPM. So really we want to be hitting 8 minutes really on that, on a 45, because I want the vinyl to sound as good and as loud as possible. So this is going to be on the B side, and there's going to be 2 tracks on the B side, so we're probably going to have like 12 minutes on the B side max, but I want them to be as short as possible. So what I will do is I will go into this and I will cut it down and edit this track so that it's just more suited for getting great sounding vinyl. And tracks are a lot shorter nowadays. That's if I can shorten it, because it's got a big piano solo all the way through it. So what I do is when I'm mixing, I get the track in and I'll mute everything except for the kick. Okay. And then I have a bit of a chain. My kick goes through to this NLS drums, which is something I tried and I've been trying for a bit. I'm still checking it out. It sounds good. And what that does is that NLS drums goes to drum processing. Okay. And in the drum processing, I have a Shadow Hills. Okay. And I have a black box, and that on and off in a second. So what I try and do is I try and get about 1 dB of reduction on this here. Okay, so the kick bus, we want to go that to, send that to NLS, see how it sounds. maybe a bit too much saturation on that. I'll just take that straight to the drum processing. What I'll do is I'll get that and I'll turn that down in the audio. So it's hitting about 1 dB. And I find that that's quite a good level to be going at. I actually got this little trick off Jason Joshua in one of his videos. So yeah. And that's a good level. And then what I'll do is I'll mix into the kick, okay? So the first thing I want to add really is a clap, really, and I'll just put that in. Okay. And with that, there would have been a reverb, so I'll just slap a reverb on there. I really like this hybrid one with Ableton. Then I've got loads of server impulses that are really good. Drag in. I'll just mono the kick. And then what I will do generally a lot of the time, I will go to my pre-master and I will stick on there a compressor, so you can use glue or whatever you use. I use something called Unisum. And I'll just put that on for now. But I always mix into the inflator, and I really like the Oxford inflator. And I generally start off quite high with the effect. So about 78, 27. I take off clip because it's not going to clip because of the levels going into the Shadow Hills. So ask any questions, anyone, if you want. So I get the kick right, I get a clap. I'll just have a look at the audio. Okay, sounds good. And then I'll get the bass in. Okay, so I'll get the level about right. And because this is going to vinyl, and because it's not got a big top end to the bass, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll off that top bit a little bit. Going to mono it. I want this track as mono as possible, okay? Because it helps with getting the vinyl louder. It doesn't have to be. It's not a rule. But with this track, it doesn't matter. Like if I had a big Reese bass and that was the main bass of the track and it was quite wide and modulated, I wouldn't mono it. You know, you are putting loudness at risk, but that's the track. You know, the character of the track is the most important thing. So, yeah, I get the bass right and I listen to the bottom end. And then what I do, I get the levels right, and now while this is in isolation, I'll just try and tighten up that bottom end to be as good as possible, because I really want to feel this in the club. So I want the bounciness of the on and off of the kick and the bass to really be bouncing as much as possible. So in isolation, I'll add a side chain and try side chain that bass to it. But I can already hear that it is sidechain, but let's see what it does. And so, yeah, I really like the levels of the kick and the bass, how they're working with each other in the bottom end. Doing that in isolation is the key to it. Obviously, I've got a great room. It's easy for me to say, but what I'm doing is by isolating the bottom end using metric AB, you can feel the bottom end. Now, for me, we're making club music and I want this to sound really, really good. But the first thing I'm going to do with that is I'm going to get an EQ on it. Okay. And I'm also going to try and to take the bottom end up to get rid of as much of this energy as possible so it's not interfering with the cut of the vinyl. And so, yeah, this is what I'll do. Same thing again, listen in isolation. Okay, so I like where that is there. What I'll do now is always go back to it and listen with everything in. So I think that sounds really good. I think that it's tightened that bass up quite a little bit actually. So now we've got the foundation of the track, okay? And because it's going to vinyl, I'm going to try and keep the bottom end as mono as possible because of the style of the track. So what's the next thing? The next thing was the piano. So as you heard in the reference, the piano monoed quite a lot. So I'm not going to go to anything else. I might just put a hi-hat in first of all. Okay, that's a nice level just to get a vibe going. And then I'll start with the most important lead when I'm mixing. So this is why we don't want it all together. We'll go to the music group and I'll go to the main piano. And I'll just look at that. And that's full in mono. So the thing is I'm making it for vinyl, so I'm going to try and make that sound a bit wider, but I'm not going to just stick on. I want the least amount of stereo information on the side to help us to be able to get the vinyl louder while still making it sound stereo. So the first thing I'll do is stick on a reverb and then see how that sounds. With everything else in. So I'm just using the hybrid reverb for now, but I might just use something like a vintage verb on it or something like that. Okay, and then I go for the next most important thing. So and we'll look at the frequencies on that. And that's a mono signal. So I'll look at the bottom end on that, take out what we don't need. what I'll do is I'll find a level where I think that sounds the best with the bass, because the top of the bass is connected to the bottom of the piano. What I'll do is I'll click on frequency and just have a look and see if piano and the bass aren't in together. Okay, so they're not in together there. What I'll probably have to do in the break, just reintroduce a bit of the bottom end of the bass, maybe filter out towards the end, and same with these breaks. Add a bit more of the bottom end of the piano in when we're in the breaks, when there is no bass in there. Obviously, I'll double check these and listen to them. Okay. Okay, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Hopefully that's better. Thanks, Kevin. So what I'm trying to do is I've got the foundation of the track together, and then I'm bringing in the main lead and then all the other sounds to work around that. So now I'm going to bring the main piano back in. Okay, and I don't like that reverb on it. So what I might do here is go for something to try and make that a little bit wider. But I'm going to use a plugin, which is, I'll try the wider. I don't think that's going to work. This sounds really good, to be honest with you. I'll just try a couple more plugins, because when it comes to stereo widening things, I don't just go for the one, because certain things might sound better. This stage mono under 150. Can you hear? We're kind of losing the transients a little bit. So I'm going to go between the two. So I prefer space control by Acoustica. I always try multiple width plugins. So I've got wider, I've got stage 1, I've got ozone 12. I also like bass control, bass lane, because they do different things, and sometimes they all win at different times. And generally it's stage 1 that works better on mono signals, but today it's been bass control on this. And again, I'm always checking in mono, and I'm listening to the transients of the piano and the phase and seeing which ones, just keeping the punch of it in the center a little bit more, but still making it sound really wide. Okay. So I like that. So what I'm going to do is, because we're going to vinyl, I'm going to cut the bottom end out. So what's happened is I've got the pianos. I just turned it really low so I can hear the levels. I've got 3 pianos, but they're all at different octaves. So they've all got their own space in the mix. And the solo one. So all I'm trying to do here is get the reverbs that suit the sound. I'll put them in, and once I've got everything in, that's when I'll balance the reverbs based around everything else in the track. I won't just put a reverb on now and go, oh right, that Lexicon 224 sounds great on the piano, and then go, right, that's it. Because all the reverbs and all the sounds are what trying to make the track sound muddy. And what I want is I want as much punch as possible. So any questions, just ask. I am looking at the comments. Okay, so I really like that. Let's see what else we've got. Got the strings. Okay, so what I want to do is that's in the center. So I want to take it away from the center a little bit. There's too much going on there. So the first thing I'll do is just double check there's nothing in the bottom end. Let's get rid of any rumble. And what I might do is just take away some of the stuff in the mid. Yeah, that's not working. So I might try a bit of a widener on this. I might go straight to wider. It's obviously a little bit louder in stereo, but it still sounds good in mono. And all we're doing really is getting the levels now. So that wider plugin, I think it's free. It's quite a good little plugin by Infected Mushroom, actually. I would go through all the different plugins, but you don't want to watch me do all that. So let's get this low string together. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give everything its space in the mix, just at the levels, get the levels right, just with the stems that they gave me. And some of the times that's all a mix needs, because someone's not got the right room or the right listening environment. They struggle to balance the lows and the mids. And some of the tools that I'll use are things like Metric AB. Some good tools there. The spectrum's quite good. And I'll put a reference in there and I'll look at my track to their track. I've got no reference for this. And then the other one that I'll use is tonal balance, which is really good. It's not bass heavy, just call it EDM for now. This is really good, and kind of you want to be keeping in between these parameters. And this line is kind of the ideal, and it does work, but we've not got any drums in, so it's not going to. So we can see we've got plenty of bottom end there. 50 hertz is quite loud. Maybe we want to be looking at that, turn it down a little bit. We've got a bit of a dip around 500, 700. We're going to add some strings, and the highs seem to be quite good at the moment, but we've not even added the hi-hat. So I generally find that to be a good plugin. Sometimes I put it on and it does tell me when things are out of tilt. Let's get this low string right. Okay, because in parts of the track you've just got them two together. And then I'll listen to it, I'll go, okay, that does feel like it needs a bit of bite to me, so probably add a bit of distortion at this point. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and get a feeling for the track and where everything else is in the mix before I start adding the drums, because that's all the music. And when everything's in, I want everything to work together, but I kind of want it to have its own space. I'll listen to the mono signal, the stereo field, where everything is forwards and backwards, and decide on the reverbs and stuff. And decide on the reverbs and stuff right there. So, have you got any feedback, by the way? And putting everything into mono is a good way of I think, of listening to see where, if there's a lot of mud in there. And just then I could hear there was something going on with the piano. So I took something out in mono, then put it stereo, checked it, double A/B'd it on and off. Okay, so I'm happy with where everything is. It's got its own position in the mix. When things come in and out, nothing's jumping up too high, or seems too low. And when I bring in like the top string, I'm listening to the bottom string and make sure I'm not hiding that too much, which is why I turn that down. And I think that it's really important to take breaks when you listen to it, but also when you're adding something in, don't think, oh, that's lifting it up. Just think it's complementing it is the best way to think about it, because then what that does is that's why we choose the higher octave or 2 octaves up, because we don't need to turn that string right up. What we need to do is make it fit the mix. We don't want loads of things jumping out. We want a nice, well-balanced mix, and that's why we choose the different octaves. But when you do introduce it, yes, that string takes over the mix. So I don't know why it's doing that. That string does take over the mix, but we don't want to take away from the other mix. We want them to feel like they're kind of joined together, but can still feel that low mix. Okay, so any questions? So now what I'll do is I'll start introducing the hi-hats and everything else and the drums. And I'll mix them all into whatever else is there. Because these are the most important elements. I need to make sure that the music is right. Because if the music isn't right, you know, we're just trying to fit stuff in around loads of slushy drums and everything else. And you can't lose the music, but you can lose some of the drums if they're creating too much mud or problems. Or you can really EQ the hell out of it so it does fit the mix with everything else. We're working to lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, lead 4. If you've done my mindset for mixing production, you'll understand that. Dan Craig said, when using tonal balance, do you always use their target curves or do you load in reference tracks in? I kind of generally know the levels because I know my room inside out, where I want to be getting with something. But I just look at, I load EDM and just put it in. But if you've got a track you really like the mix of, then do that. You can load in a reference track and A/B it to that. You've got to remember their track's mastered. And all I'm trying to think is, a lot of the time I look at it and I go, oh, I've not really got enough, you know, mid-range, like 2K, 4K. The tracks that people send me have loads of kick and bass and loads of hi-hats, but nothing in the center, in the mid. And the magic's in the mid-range. That's where the power comes from. And that's what makes your track sounds louder. In my mixing for loudness course on Subtone, this big thing that we talk about is the mid-range. So your pianos, your vocals, your guitars, your synths, you know, everything's virtually in the mid-range, even the top of your bass. So now I'll add in everything else to go with all the music. Okay, now we'll introduce the hi-hats. Okay, so there's nothing on the crash, there's nothing on the ride. And that's it for the hats. I think we could possibly do with a bit of air up there. I might put a bit of reverb on the 16s. Okay, I feel like I could do with a bit more bass, but not the top part of it. So I'm going to bring the top of the bass down a little bit and turn the whole thing up a little bit. I feel like we don't need that character because the piano's in all the way through. I'll always check. I'm always checking monocompatibility. I'm always listening to the bottom end, always listening to the top end. I mean, I would have a reference in here maybe and check the sub to the bass, the lows, the mids, because when I'm mixing, sometimes, you know, I lose a track of the balance sometimes. So it's nice just to have a reference that I know sounds really good, and specifically in that genre. Some people like the hats much louder, some people like the hats much quieter. And again, I get to this point now, bring it up, go to tonal balance. And now I think, you know, I'm looking at tonal balance. It's a bit weak around 500. Let's have a look what's in that area and the 2K. And I think 2K is really important for it sitting forward in the mix. So I'm going to just tweak it a little bit, listening to everything to see if I can give it a bit more presence here. Because when I'm listening, I've got like 20 hertz, 20K, mid, sides, left, right, forwards, backwards. And in my room, the bass is down here and the heights are up there. And if you've got a good room, I guess they will be. I'm just trying to see if I've got the levels right, if things can pop through a little bit more in the center and the sides. Okay, so I like where everything else in the mix now. The mix is balanced. So I like the width of it. I mean, if it wasn't just for vinyl, I'd be making this probably a little bit wider. But I like where everything's sitting, I like where everything's punching. So now, you know, getting a mix right is about the balance. So let's just A-B this to the original. Let's A-B to the original, and then just listen to what the difference is. See, the new mix has got a lot more punch, it's got a lot more definition. And this is a difference between doing things on an analog desk and in a sampler and having the ability to do mid-sides and control everything and EQ it a little bit more in the mix with digital. So, yeah, it sounds better already. But what can we do for this now? Okay. So, let's have a listen to the kick in the mix. So I'd like the top of that kick to come through a little bit more. I might try and add a little something to the top of that kick, just in the mix, just for around the 2 to 4K, just helps it come through a little bit more. The character of it. Just brought that top end up a little bit, but I'm doing it in the mix, you see. I'm not doing it in isolation. That sounds good. Now what I might do is think about loudness. So I might go to my oscilloscope. So I've got an oscilloscope on every group. And now what I want to do is see like kind of what is the loudest thing in this track and what's going to hit the limiter first. We can see here it's definitely the kick. So can I turn the kick down a little bit? Yeah, I can. You know, sometimes the oscilloscope's really good for telling you you've got something a bit loud where your ears haven't got used to it. So I could take that down a bit of a dB. Now, these are what's going to hit it first, but if we go to sum, we can see it's where you've got the clap. You know, that it's just a bit louder. So you have to look at the clap. I might click the clap, but really everything else in the track isn't really that bad. It's not too loud. It's not, you know, the distance between the loudest part and the quietest part isn't that much. It's the kick. So I might try and clip the kick just to reduce it a little bit more. We can already see in this that it's quite looks like it's been clipped already. So sometimes what you can do is you can look at EQ. So the clipper, you could see that the kick was totally flatlined. So I didn't, and when I tuned into it, it just didn't, there was nothing more you could do to that. So what I'm going to do now is look at the EQ and see on the meter of the kick, see if I can reduce this. So what I've done there is, hey Aaron, what I've done there is I brought low cut up on the kick, okay? Now sometimes this will increase the volume of the kick and sometimes this will take away from the volume of the kick. And in this instance, it's give us a bit of headroom, but what it's also done, because we're going to vinyl, is taking out them frequencies at the bottom, which could create issues. And I want to keep my bottom end. I want to keep it true to the track, but I do want to get rid of as much as that's possible without losing the integrity of the kick, which I really like. And when you listen to it, you can't hear any difference, but I'll listen in the mix. So what I did there then was, obviously took the real bottom end out, then seeing if there's any mud in the kick I could take out, which made the kick seem louder and have more definition, specifically in the bottom end at that point, by taking away. So what I've done is I dipped it, I was using my ears to listen to it, and take what it does by taking that middle bit away around 140 hertz in this case, it separated the bottom of the kick from the top of the kick, so it would give them both more definition. But what did it do to the meter? It didn't touch it. So good. Sometimes that will reduce this even more, but it's a good level, and the kick and the bass sound really good now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at them claps, because when we looked at the oscilloscope, that was a real key point. So at this point, you know, with the claps, this is where I'm going to clip them. Now, I don't clip for the sake of clipping, and we don't want any distortion. And the other thing about when you're trying to mix for vinyl, the bottom end can create problems, but the sibilances and the 3 to 6K can create problems as well. So I want them as clear as possible. So I will clip the clap. And again, what I did was I looked at the oscilloscope. I'm trying to get it, you know, reduce the crest factor as much as possible. I just turned down the clap slightly and it still worked. And I'm not going to master this track as such, because the cutting engineer will do that. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that when I give it to them, I've done as most as I can on the individual files as possible to make his job as easy as possible, so he's not just working on one file. Any questions, anyone? Okay, so I'm happy with the mix. I'm happy with everything that's gone there. What I might do now is look at the drums. And what I'll do is I'll just listen to drums with bass, and I'll try and put a bit of compression on, which I've already got with the Shadow Hills. I'll try and give them a bit more definition, a bit more punch. I really like what that does. It gives a bit more character. Let's see if a bit of saturation is going to help this. Okay, so I couldn't really hear a lot of difference. I can hear a little bit more in the drums. I do have what the saturation's doing. And let's turn it on and off quickly. What it's doing is it's giving it a bit more definition in the center, specifically in the mid-range and the drums. And what I do with this is just get the pento, turn it all the way up, see what it's affecting, get the trial, turn it all the way up and down, see what it's affecting. Same with the level match, and then turn it on and off. And let's see what it's doing to the volume of it. So with it off, minus 9.6. With it on, minus 9.79, minus 8. So it gives us a bit of headroom as well on the drums. And that's the thing, you know, I'm not mixing for loudness here. What I'm mixing for is to make sure that we've got, you know, a reduced RMS, so the difference between the highest peak and the average is as small as possible without clipping it and everything else, because a lot of them things that you would do normally for digital mixing, sometimes we need to avoid, because we need to think about what's happening in the low end, but also what's happening in the real top end. And I'm going to listen to that now. Okay, so I can hear that this end high is just a little bit noisy. So what I might do there is just try soothe. See if it's going to take anything away from it. Yeah, that's really good. It's just a preset. You've got to listen to it in the mix, because sometimes this can really kind of take your top end off your track. And the thing about going to vinyl is, you know, a lot of house music nowadays has loads of hi-hat loops in there, and you see like 6 or 7 loops in there, and they don't have the definition in the top end. And really, when the needle's playing the record, you want to be able to have the, you know, you want to be able to really define the pattern of all the hi-hats and the drums and the transients together to get the best out of the record, because the needle will struggle to see it. So that area there, now I will always, I'm doing lots of EPs on vinyl now on my label. So what I'm always going to try and get a bit of the definition, defined definition in the top end, as opposed to loads of white noise and crushy loops that you seem to hear so much about nowadays that just kind of lack a groove. So yeah, that's looking into that. It doesn't seem too harsh. Let's have a look at tonal balance. Now it's saying there's a lot of bottom end information, but I like the sound of it. Let's just say it was a bass heavy track, which there's a lot of bass in it. I do like the bottom end in this track, so I'm going to ignore that. These are just tools to guide us, remember. So let's go back to the drums. And then I might try and add a bit of transient, so in this track, we haven't got loads of transients besides a snare or something like that. You know, if we had a conga looper there and stuff like that, this might really help them cut through. But I don't hear it doing loads really. It's affecting the 16 hats, so I don't think it needs. And yeah, I'm not going to use that. And then I'll put everything back in and just see if I can EQ, if I can make them fit a bit better in the mix. And what I heard then was, when I introduced the music, I felt like I lost the drums totally. So now I've got the whole music group and turned it down. I always want to be listening to the top of the kit coming through. And now I'll listen to it really low. Just get the levels, see if I can still hear everything in the mix. And it's a really good thing to do that, is to go really low in volume, just to be able to just balance everything out in your mix. So now we've got the drums sounding wicked. You know, the hat's quite lo-fi. It was what it was for the original track. Probably do with a bit of brightness at the top end. And you know, the snares the main rhythm of the track when it comes to the drums, and that's really cutting through the mix. I really like the feeling of the bass when it's loud and it's really bouncing off me. I just feel like because it is so lo-fi, this track, that even though that was the idea with when I made the track originally, maybe we should try and make this just sound a bit more hi-fi. Okay, so what can I do for that? Well, first of all, we've got the music. What I might do is just put a bit like a tape machine on the music. That's just a bit of compression. Can you hear it? Yeah, I can hear it doing a little something on the group together. Does it need it? Probably not. But I just feel like it needs a bit more shine in this area. So I'm going to try and put on a tape machine. There's loads. I'll try the UAD. Is the sound okay, everyone? There's no feedback or anything. Okay, so I want to get the levels right going into this. Okay, so I want to be hitting the red really with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a utility before it. And I'm going to turn it up till it hits the red. So 5, and then I'm going to get -5 after it. And what that's doing is it's just bringing through the mids and the highs and just giving it a bit more, making it a little less lo-fi and just bringing it all forward a little bit. I really like the sound of that. Let's level match that just in case. Stefan's going, well, you've not level matched, Jason. You always tell me to level match. Okay. So Perception AB, for those of you that don't know it, it is an amazing plugin. Put one pre, And you get one, you drag it up. You get one after. Press post and then press play. So it's done exactly what it says on the preset, pushed, bright and sizzly. And because it is an old analog sound, that's exactly what I was looking for. And I knew I could find that in the tape machine. And sometimes it's not what you do to the individual items, but you just know there's things like certain tape machines that you can push an EQ with, as well as just, you know, get a bit of compression and that tape feeling out of it. And that's an amazing plugin. So let's just make sure them levels are right now. You see, before the record was all top and it didn't really have the grit and the punch that you really want from a record, specifically if you're making club music. And it didn't really have a lot of togetherness, to be quite honest with you. So I'm liking everything that's in there right now. Check the effects. I just feel like the kick could come through a bit more, so I'm going to put a duck on the music bus, just see how it sounds, but do it to like the lower frequencies. I don't like what that's doing. You know, maybe the kick is a little bit boomy on this, to be quite honest with you. So I might down a little bit. be honest with you, I think that I'd probably come back to the track and change the kick. Now, like I said, I made it on a drum sampler. It was all analog. That was the idea. But now I'm going to vinyl. I like this kick. I just think I could do with a little bit more of something in the 2K mark to really help it cut through the mix, just make it a bit more modern. Wondering whether there's enough top end in them drums. What I'm doing is I'm just turning down all the music to the kick, to the drums, because, and this is what I see a lot of the time, and I do this for a lot of people. I turn everything down so the kick comes through a little bit more and go, oh, the track's really hitting a lot harder. And it's just because what happens is we start with a kick and a clap, and then we add sounds, and then suddenly, without realizing, we've hidden the kick. And when I'm mixing, I really want the kick to push through. I'm not going to start looking for a kick now, but I'll definitely change the kick on this. Oh, wow, we've been on for almost 2 hours. Any questions, anybody? So that's what I would do. Let's just go to the master quickly. What would I do on the master? A bit of compression. This plugin might not want the kick to hit it as hard because we've got quite a good mid-range to really help to really hit it. So I might turn the weight of the kick down a little bit. What this is doing is making it so I'm turning down so the kick isn't hitting as harder. The thump of the kick isn't triggering the compressor, but like the snares and the clap and the pianos are a little bit, and I think it sounds a bit better. I think that sounds really good. You know, this is a lot of our sounds are already compressed, you know, the samples, but compression and tape and a lot of the stuff and the magic that's in mixing house music is done on the buses or the masters. And what I'll do now is I'll just go to a few plugins that are just one-trick ponies that might make something sound really good. Like SPL Machine Head. And again, don't be tricked into thinking that it's better because it's louder. Always level match. It's just doing something to that mid-range that I really like, so I might like that. Some things that just sound good on your master to make it good. Tape machine we've already got on the music. That's a good little plug-in. We've got the inflator, we've mixed into that. Tape's really good for just giving something you can't just do with EQ. Try the Gullfoss. Again, it's just giving it a bit more definition. It's taking out like kind of mud, I think, is probably what it's doing. And then, you know, there's also things like the SPL Vitalizer. What this is doing is finding a certain area and it's kind of boosting it a little bit. But you've got to find what sounds good, and it sounded good bringing the hearts up, but I thought that the piano on the master, that sounded better. And then we can, it's like it's going through analog channels, and we can just change the channels. Sounds good. And then just select random channel, see which sounds best. Stereo expander, I'll mono the bottom end. In fact, I wouldn't mono the bottom end because this is going to master engineer, and as a whole file he'd probably do that in analog, so it sounds better for vinyl. But mono the bottom end. there, it's not really doing much. And then go back through everything, turn it on off. So there's PL meter. I really like that. I think it sounds really good. Any questions, anyone, before I sign off? Let's A/B it to the original. See, I think this track sounds much better. Sounds really more well balanced, but the kick isn't right. And I need to find something where the top of the kick really rips through, you know, like a sulfuric record or something like that. For me, that's what's lacking. The rest of it sounds really nice. The top of the snare was just clashing with the hats a little bit. Sounds really good. I just think it's lacking the proper kick to really, you know, I want it to rip through the speakers about 2 or 3K, the top of the kick, with a bit of aggressive, like an old school sampled kick. So I will definitely change that. But I think it sounds really good. It sounds much better than the original. So yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. Any questions for me? Yeah, sounding much better. It's not sounding right, and that's because the kick, it's just the kick. Trust me, the kick, just that one instrument can change the whole feel of the track. And it was a lo-fi track, so there wasn't lots of upper mids and stuff in the sounds that we had originally with the drums. But what I want from this is really, I want the top of the kick and the clap just to be ripping through the mix a little bit more. To make that old school kind of sulfuric sound and everything else, but I'm going to go back and change it. It's going to take me ages to look at it, and an hour's turned into 2 hours. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mixmania Records. Let me know what you think. I'm going to finish this off, and then I'm going to put it up so you can download the project. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, and hopefully see you soon.